Hi everyone, this is Bino Nintendo here, and I am here with my friend. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name's Jason, and I'm here as the resident expert on today's topic.
Yes. So today we are making a Sesame Street character tier list, and it's pertinent information. I think that Jason has a 2-year-old who is watching Sesame Street very frequently right now. In fact, you even had a Sesame Street themed Halloween costume this past year.
Yes, I was Count Von Count.
Yes, and we'll talk about Count Von Count in a minute. Jason is a very good friend of mine, and we used to There's a playlist somewhere on my channel of a bunch of stuff that I worked on in high school. You'll see his face if you check that out. But yeah, it's been a long time since we recorded something together, and I thought this is a perfect opportunity for us.
Yeah, get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited.
So yeah, why don't we just jump right into things? Just go here in alphabetical order. Oh, by the way, one thing I wanted to shout out is that we were actually going to use a different tier list, and then Jason put this tier list together. So this is his list.
This was and I had to properly name it the ultimate Sesame Street tier list.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it is, because looking at some of the other lists, yeah, I don't know, some of the characters on there don't really make a lot of sense, or they're really old,
or just missing.
They're missing a lot of
some of the main cast or updated ones.
There are a fair number of characters on here that I'm not even familiar with. So speaking of, let's get started. I do know of Abby Cadabby, but she was introduced in the show, after I stopped watching. So I've seen very little of her. So I'm more or less trusting you to tell me where I should put her.
I mean, Abby's sweet. She's a sweetheart. She's as far as representation goes, she was there to get all the pretty in pink little girls. There was no representation for that kind of character yet. You'd almost call it like a little boys club for Sesame Street until she kind of came along and a bit. By the way, everything I know is through the eyes of my 2-year-old daughter, who's watched it for the past year and a half. So I'm by no means an expert, but we'll probably go back and forth, Ben. I'm sure you know a bit of the old school stuff, and I know a bit more of the newer stuff.
Sure.
Abby's definitely one of the main cast, right up there next to Elmo. They're best friends. She's magical. She's musical. And then on her, expanded story, she's got a stepbrother and all that, which we can get into later. But I would rank her in S tier. Just
really?
Because
okay.
She is right there next to Elmo.
Okay. Well, I mean, and I'm hovering over C tier now just because that's in the middle. Not any. Yeah, I'm not saying that's where she belongs by any means.
She's S for super in my book.
Yeah. Well, I would never put her in either of the bottom tiers, even though I don't know much about her. Just because I know how much your daughter likes her.
That's who she was for Halloween.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, I will take your word for it. I'll put her in S tier. Okay.
Cool.
Baby Bear. What do we think about Baby Bear? I'm just going to place them in C tier for now. Oh, yeah, he does have the funny voice, yes. Yeah.
It's not a funny voice. It's a lisp.
Okay. That's fair. We should normalize that.
Lisp or just the common little kid learning how to pronounce his R's. Because I think he does say, I can't pronounce my R's yet. Yeah, he's kind of a funny character. He's fun-loving, very genuine, but kind of, like the way little kids are, just direct. And doesn't really understand sarcasm or anything yet.
I made my own personal ranking before this. So I want to be able to cross-reference that and be like, okay, this is where I placed them. So yeah, when I made my tier list earlier, I put Baby Bear at a B tier. I think Baby Bear is a good character. I especially like how he draws, and the existence of Hero Guy is a very fun thing. But I wouldn't consider him one of my favorites, you know?
Yeah, no, I would honestly agree. I think he's a B tier. He can be kind of dopey sometimes, or be part of bits that just aren't very funny or clever.
Sure.
So it's a shame they use him for that, but he still is a solid member. So
yeah, and it's B for Baby Bear. So yeah, you can't get much better than that.
Baby BL.
Okay, so Bert. What do I think of Bert?
Man, I have a love-hate relationship with Bert and Ernie.
Okay, I'm interested to hear about this.
Originally, they were great, right? They were two friends. They had all the great, rubber ducky scene with Ernie, and then the antics that they did with each other. I also love the actors that play them. I feel like we need to rank them together.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah, I think they put
I can't talk about Bert without talking about Ernie.
That's very fair. I think that these are in alphabetical order now, but I think I can move. Yeah, I can just put Ernie there. And then I'll put them both in C tier for now, but that is the placeholder tier. It's not, we might leave some stuff in C tier. In fact, I do have a few characters that I do want to put in C tier, but I'm like, yeah. Okay, anyway, yeah, tell me.
They are some of the most complex characters on Sesame Street because they are basically adults. You see them, they have their own place. They're leaving the house and doing their own laundry, but at the same time, Bert rides a tricycle. And
that is weird. Yeah, that is interesting. I never thought about that.
They both take naps in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I do
that too, but still, I mean. So there's a lot of, things that relate them to being 3 years old, but at the same time, they're adults. So I think they have a very special place in Sesame Street because they can be a part of scenes that the acting cast, which we did not include besides the Noodle Family, the acting cast cannot really get away with.
The human characters, we should say. The ones that are portrayed by just people in costumes instead of puppets.
Yes. So I feel like they can get away with a lot more, and they have flexibility in that. At the same time, they were created such a long time ago that I feel that they struggle to find a place of relevance in today's generation.
Okay, unpack that a little for me. I don't really know what you mean by that.
The costumes, for one, are super 80s, 90s based, right?
Okay,
and
yes.
They can't really change that because the character's established.
Yeah.
So that becomes very tough for them to be more relevant. But at the same time, I feel if you change their clothes and change their design, they wouldn't really hold the same place.
I think people would be very upset if they changed the designs.
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like that also, Sesame Street getting started out, they were very much of like the hokey antics, kind
Mm.
of scenes that they used to play, and that was a big part of Bert and Ernie. But
Mm-hmm.
now they're so rooted in the educational curriculum that
Mm.
it can be more tough to find them in a place of relevance that they used to
Okay,
have.
okay. So like yeah, so what you're saying is they've kind of broken away from just kind of like the funny like roommate dynamics of Bert and Ernie, and they've like tried to shift them into more like we're gonna teach you stuff characters.
No, they still do the antics, but that's the thing, right? It's like there's one scene Ernie is like doing a music video on his phone, but he wants
Mm-hmm.
Bert to be a part of it, and Bert doesn't. So it's like the whole back
Hmm.
and forth with that. So they still keep it up, but it's like it just doesn't feel the same, or they have to find places like that where it's like not part of the whole curriculum that they center around with the main cast nowadays. They've kind of been
Okay.
pushed to the wayside, and they're more of like a supporting role. So
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
love them a lot, but I feel like they can't hold the same weight that they used to. Um,
Yeah, I that's and see this is why I wanted to do this with you is because you're like I have not watched I've watched a couple of episodes of Sesame Street as an adult, but like I have not kept up. So, I haven't really seen all the ways in which the show has changed. I will say,
mhm.
from my personal rankings, I put both Bert and Ernie in A tier. I put Bert slightly above Ernie just because I think that Ernie is like the silly character, and I think that Sesame Street already has a few other characters that sort of fill that niche, whereas Bert
Mm.
kind of gives a different like he's kind of the like I don't know like
He's
snooty
the
reserved.
character growth. He's the one who has to push back past his current limits to grow as a person.
You make him sound like an anime protagonist. I'm watching
Super
My Burt
Saiyan.
Academia. Yeah. No, I like I think his role as a comedic foil is very important. And there's another character I'm gonna talk about later that I think I like a lot because of his existence as a comedic foil. But at the same time, like that dynamic doesn't work unless you also have Ernie. Yeah, I would put them both in A tier with Ernie slightly behind Bert, but still like next to him. Does that sound good to you, or would you? Yeah, is there
If
a
it were my
different?
personal fondness, they would go in A tier. But because of their relevance, I would have to put them in C.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
and
that's
I'm a
really
harsh
interesting.
grader. I'm a harsh grader.
Okay. Well, if you're going
Do we
C
compromise?
and I'm going A, then the B tier is right in between. Okay, but important question: in relation to Baby Bear, where should they go? If they're going in B tier, should they be in front of Baby Bear or behind Baby Bear?
Baby Bear serves a more relevant purpose, so I would put him behind. Just because
Wow.
Baby Bear is more relatable to the kids of that age group,
Hmm.
because he's very upfront about what he can do or can't do talent wise or motor skill
Hmm.
wise. So he's very
Interesting.
forward that way.
Yeah, Hmm. I feel like I'm
Initially,
willing.
I
Hmm.
hated Baby Bear. I thought he was an
Hmm.
annoying character, but the more you see him in the different scenes, the more you see him as a character.
Okay. All right. I'm willing to put Bert and Ernie in
Da
A
da
tier or in,
da
in B
da
tier.
da da
Um,
da da.
what are you doing? Yeah, I'm willing to put them in B tier. I don't know if I'm willing to put them behind Baby Bear.
Put Baby
Um,
Bear in the middle.
Oh, I can't let him get in between them. Are you kidding me? Like, they're best friends.
That's fine. Yeah, put baby hair behind. Put baby hair back there.
Okay. I'm glad we could at least agree on that. Okay. Or you were at least willing to compromise on that. Okay. This character looks familiar. I don't remember who they are.
That's Betty Lou.
So she's like a Southern Belle?
No, that she's not the... Well, she's kind of, but she's not the Belle. Because that's a different one.
Okay, interesting.
There's Betty Lou, and then there's Prairie Dawn.
Oh, right. Lou. I was about to say she does look like Prairie Dawn.
But she's not.
But yeah, I also see Prairie Dawn later on down the list. Do we want to rank Betty Lou and Prairie Dawn together, do you think? Or
yeah, might as well.
Sure. Okay, so I'll move Prairie Dawn up here too. Okay, so I mean, personally, I don't know anything about Betty Lou, and I think from what I remember from watching Sesame Street as a kid, Prairie Dawn seemed like kind of a nothing character, so I put her in D tier. But I'm willing to hear out your arguments if you feel...
We can make this quick. I would put Betty Lou as an F and Prairie Dawn as an
Really? Okay, yeah, all right, yeah.
They're pretty much filler, but Prairie Dawn works pretty well for like the nursery rhyme episodes. Mm-hmm. So they do kind of have a place around the curriculum, but to what I've seen, there isn't really any character development between the two. And Betty Lou is more annoying, so I would just say like
I like the way Betty Lou looks, like how you have all these like really detailed puppets and then she's just like a sock puppet with a wig. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I mean, it's like Prairie Dawn works well for being like shepherding the sheep and, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Big Bird. I have a hot take about Big Bird. Do you want to hear my hot take?
Yeah.
I think Big Bird is a D tier character.
What?
Yeah. I just thinking about at least of like the main Sesame Street cast of like the ones that like everyone knows, I'm like, I don't know, Big Bird is like, they're a big bird and they're like whiny. And I do have some positive like associations with Big Bird. You know, I think Journey to Ernie is fun. And if Big Bird didn't exist, then Snuffleupagus wouldn't be on the show. And we'll get to him in a minute. But I think about like Sesame Street without Big Bird, and like just kind of the appealing thing about Big Bird for me is just like his sheer size, but like character wise, I don't know if you'd be missing that much if you got rid of Big Bird. But I can tell that my hot take is a hot, you know, you responded the way I expected you to. So
that is interesting, because I could kind of see that if Big Bird were gone, you're not really missing too much. My take on it is Big Bird is the character who reflects the viewer. So the age of the viewer is like 3.5 years old, right? When Big Bird first was created, and I never knew this, and I might be saying part of it wrong, but like, they didn't really have the character built out. They had the puppet, and then they had a guy be the puppeteer, and he was just kind of figuring out over the course of their recording like who Big Bird really is. And originally he was like this smart kind of bird, but it looked kind of condescending and it didn't really work. I could be wrong on that, but that's how I remember it. Eventually when they got the character figured out, he goes, what if we just have him as this curious, almost as a 3-year-old would be, just view of the world, like trying to understand how things work out, being completely unaware of innuendos or sarcasm, anything like that. So to me, he is a perfect in-show representation of what the viewer would be. And as a kid watching the show, I thought Big Bird was amazing because he viewed the world very similar to how I questioned the world.
Okay.
As an adult, he's kind of annoying because he always asks questions, or he's like, oh, really? Oh, I can do that, or I can jump high too. But at the same time, to a kid who has no understanding of sarcasm or innuendo and constantly repeats things, it is like on the same exact wavelength. And so I feel like he has a very important place because kids will see him as genuine and knowledgeable even towards the different things as you learn. And having him be ecstatic about stuff that he learns on the show, you in turn are learning as well. So I think he's like one of the most unique characters on Sesame Street for that reason.
Okay, you are selling me on Big Bird a little bit. That is, you're making some really good points. Where would you personally place Big Bird?
Man, with your comment on the fact that, like, because he's so open-ended, like, I've got to put him on A.
Okay.
They've got a really good episode of when one of the main cast died. I think it was Hooper of Hooper's Story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I do remember hearing about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they said, well, what do? Do we just recast Hooper, or do we change it and not talk about it? No, we have to talk about it. So they found a way to talk about it, and they had Big Bird be a part of it. And he goes like, well, when's Hooper coming back? And they're like, well, he's not coming back. And so from that 3-year-old understanding, they kind of had to like describe to him what death meant, and that gave them an avenue that I feel no other character could do.
Yeah, well, and you talking about that, I know that also, like, during Hurricane Katrina, where, like, a lot of people were, like, losing their homes due to natural disasters, there was an episode about Big Bird losing his nest and, like, how that was...
Yes.
So okay, I think, you know what?
You couldn't do that. You couldn't do that with Elmo.
No, you couldn't. Yeah. No, yeah. Okay, you have convinced me. I don't think we need to compromise. I think I can put Big Bird in A tier.
Sweet.
Okay. Cookie Monster.
Nom 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 nom. I feel like it's one of those weird things where Bert and Ernie has gotten less relevant. Cookie Monster, I feel, has gotten more relevant. And there was that middle scare, right, when like all he liked was cookies, and then there was the whole veggie craze, and he had to like vegetables and fruit. And they kind of did that for a while, but now he has his own cooking segment with Gonger.
Oh, I love that. I don't know who Gonger is, but I do. I love that as a concept.
Yeah, so like he has his own food truck, and they do little segments, and I think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah, so that sounds great.
They've totally reimagined Cookie Monster. On the flip side, he for a number of seasons had you would love this, I don't, but
okay.
They had a whole segment that would spoof movies like Harry Potter and Star Wars and Hunger Games.
Yeah,
and they would have Cookie Monster be the main character, and they would just spoof it. And I felt like that was kind of it's relevant in like what's popular, but it didn't really serve any purpose for the purpose of Sesame Street. So that to me was kind of the points.
Okay, yeah. I have seen some of those as like clips on YouTube. They have a lot of those on their YouTube channel. And yeah, I liked a lot of those, but yeah, I can definitely see your point with that, where it's like, yeah, like, this is fine and this is, like, kind of funny or whatever, but yeah, it doesn't really serve much purpose other than, like, it gives the adults watching something to entertain them. And honestly, I think, I don't know, do you remember Monster Piece Theater?
No, I don't actually.
Yeah, so that was an old segment on Sesame Street that also had Cookie Monster as the host. But he wasn't the main character, he was the host. He was, like, in kind of like this Hugh Hefner robe sitting by a fire and being like, yeah, today on Monster Piece Theater, we watching One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest. But I think that was the other thing about it, too, is, like, he would reference, like, classic literature, classic movies, classic, like, theater productions, that sort of thing. And it gave it, like, it was also a wink and a nod to, like, to the adult audience, to give them something to entertain them. But because it was, it wasn't, like, contemporary stuff. It was, like, this is, like, known canon. It's been around for many years. I think it gave it more of a timeless feeling that some of the spoofs that they've done recently don't have. Yeah, I don't know why they keep picking Cookie Monster as, like, this is the one we use to spoof things with. But yeah, no, do yourself a favor and in your free time, look up some of the Monster Piece theater segments, because, yeah, a lot of them are very funny. Anyway.
So, where would you rank him?
So, I, on my tier list, ranked him A tier. I don't know if you have strong objections to that or not, and then we would also need to figure out if we do put him in A tier.
I would do B, just because in all the things he's in, I feel like it's hit and miss. And they've had some really big wins, but he's like that wild, flexible card that they can use.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. It is a little weird to, like, I definitely think he's better than a C tier character, but also it's like his whole thing is C is for Cookie, so it's like feels kind of wrong to remove him from C tier. But yeah, so I initially had him at the bottom of A tier. So where within the B tier would you want to place him, you think? Because honestly,
there for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And then
I think there's fine.
Okay. Yeah, no, that seems good to me. All right. Count Von Count. What do we think of him?
Ooh.
Ooh.
A tier?
I was thinking S tier. I love the Count.
I mean, yeah. A or S. He's reliable. You know who he is. And he is the only character that prioritizes counting.
Yeah, no, he has a very defined role within Sesame Street. I think that the way that they, like, translated a vampire, like, into a puppet design, it's, like, very effective, He's a very distinct looking character. He's a very distinct sounding character. It's like half the time I, like, count things in my life. I'll, like, especially if I need to count things in front of people, sometimes I'll be like, like, 1 burrito, 2 burrito, like, I love the count.
Yeah. And my daughter at 1.5 was going so
it
was effective.
If that's not worth an S tier, I don't know what is. But, like, in
funny
front
too,
of her,
if you see his old, if you see old scenes that he's in, and he hasn't figured out his iconic laugh yet, so he'll go.
Oh yeah, that does sound like more of a, like, I've heard other, like, vampire characters have that laugh, but yeah, no, the is just great. Okay, but
all right, moving on.
Well, wait. I mean, is this placement good? Do you want him behind Abby or in front?
Yeah, behind Abby.
Okay, I think that's fair. All right, the big one.
Elmo,
you know.
F tier. I mean S tier.
Whoa, oh yeah, you were scaring me for a second. Like, what? Really?
There's a whole sub-universe that you don't realize where Elmo's really evil. No, it's interesting. He wasn't always the main character, right?
No, Well, he was.
And then due to popular demand, they just kind of like wrote him in as the people kind of placed him at.
Yeah,
so
I think
he's got to be number one. I think there's no contest. That's how they write him. That's how adaptable he is. He is more or less the face of Sesame Street.
He is the face of Sesame Street, and I agree that he should be high on the list. However, personally, like by my personal tastes, like I have my top 3 on lock, and there are 3 characters that I don't think, unless you have like a wildly different take than me, I don't know if I'm willing to compromise like below S tier. And Elmo is not one of those characters. I put because I had Bert and Ernie in A tier initially. I put Elmo behind Bert and Ernie. I'm willing to put Elmo above Bert and Ernie now, just as we're like discussing this. But I can't in good conscience put him like at the very top of the list. I'm even okay with putting him in S tier, but I don't think he should be the top of S tier.
Gotcha. I don't know, man. He's the face of the show. He is the S tier.
Well, okay. Here's what I'm thinking though. Like, if we were to do a tier list of all the different Mario characters, right? And I said to you, Mario has to be S tier because he's the main character. Would you be like, yeah, or would you be like, no, I like these other Mario characters way more? Because I know how I would respond.
Man, I don't know.
Because I'll agree with you that Elmo is good. Like, Elmo's world is great. Like, all of his, like, public appearances and, like, interviews are great. His whole thing with, like, his dynamic with Zoe is really funny. But I just... He's not quite there for me.
All right. I'll compromise and go A. But
okay.
As Abby's best friend, you know, most of their scenes go together. He's
sure. Okay, I will
what people relate to most.
I'll put him above Big Bird. I think he definitely, you know, you've sold me on Big Bird, but I think we can both agree that he's above Big Bird.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So who is this?
That is Gabrielle.
Okay, could you tell me a little bit about Gabrielle?
Not really.
Okay. Well, all right, cool.
She's honestly, she's basically, she's human. She's a human Muppet, right? And
sure.
I can't tell you when she premiered, but they started showing her along with a couple of the other human Muppets that you'll see on the list in the later seasons, just to broaden the representation. Because we have a lot of monsters and a lot of colors, right? But in a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement, this is one, you know, honestly great reason to bring her in and give her more of a role into the curriculum of the scenes that they show on the show. So,
gotcha. Yeah, I figured it was something like that. I just the what you're saying makes it sound like she doesn't really have a character. Is that an accurate assessment?
No, I mean she has a character, but I don't know that, you know, they kind of just throw her in with the curriculum. So I don't have one way or another. It's not like she's been around for 50 years.
Sure.
I'm just looking at this now. She appeared in season 48.
Okay,
so
yeah, definitely
5 years ago.
Okay, so yeah, very recent addition. You know, I'm glad that she exists, I think. But it's also just like representation is good, but I also think like, do something with your characters, make them fun characters,
Mm-hmm.
So are you okay if I just leave her where she is in C tier, or do you have a different place you'd want to put her?
I would say C is good.
Okay.
And I hate this because the tier is like, it's not just representative of their value, it's representative of how Sesame Street uses them. And I think there are a lot of more ways that they could be using her. If
Totally,
that
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they've had episodes where it's like, black people's hair is different than white people's hair, and
Yeah,
so it was
that's
all about like an episode of like how she washes her hair or brushes her hair and things like that, which I think is great.
Yeah, no,
um,
that's an important lesson for sure.
but then it can't just be all about that either. If
Yeah,
if every appearance she has is about her being black, then what makes it normal,
yeah. Yeah, no, that I think that's a fair take. Yeah. Okay. Let's okay. I think you alluded to this guy earlier, but who is this guy?
That is Gonger.
Gonger. Tell me about Gonger.
Gonger, oh man, he's got the funniest voice. He's like, in the olive oil.
Oh.
He adds H's in front of all of his vowels. It's hilarious. Super annoyed by him when I first, saw him as a character. He was incredibly quirky. He pretty much exists in Cookie Monster's food truck. For
Sure.
that scene, they're like partners in it.
Gotcha.
I think he's awesome. He's an incredible character. Doesn't have that much depth though. He only appears from what I've seen in Cookie Monster's food truck.
Sure.
So
I mean, I think it's fine for some characters to be like that, where it's like they kind of just have their like niche and they're they don't need to be like main cast.
but you're not going to reach S tier that way, at least in my book.
Oh no, yeah, I don't think so, no. But you can at least respect the role that they have. I will say, looking at him, that's a very fun character design. Like I look at him and I immediately like him.
Oh yeah. And the
Yeah.
voice too, like as annoying as it was, first of all, to hear him, after a while, like you realize kind of how he is as a character and how his voice blends with Cookie's. So
Yeah.
it's they work really well. And he's kind of like Cookie Monster's the one who fumbles up, right? And Gonger's
Sure.
the one who's kind of more the head chef and understands how things get done. I would put him ahead of Gabrielle just because of the uniqueness of him as a character and the fact
Okay.
that like they created this new segment and that's where he fits. And
So ahead of Gabrielle in C tier, or do you think he should be moved?
yeah, in C tier.
Okay. All right. Grover. I mean, I feel like, honestly, I feel pretty similarly about Grover to my feelings on Elmo. I think they're both great, but I also, and I recognize their importance in the franchise. But actually, oh yeah, in my initial tier list, I put Grover at the top of B tier. Yeah, I think Grover has, like, Super Grover's fun. I think the monster at the end of this book is Grover's, like, best role, personally. And I think the waiter scenes, which we can talk about in a little bit, are also, like, very, very funny. But I also just think, like, it's kind of what I was saying with Ernie, where it's like there are other Muppets that like kind of fill the like goofy character role, and Grover does a really good job at that. But it's also like, he's not totally unique in that way.
He doesn't elevate the show or the purpose of the show, I would say. He's
Mm.
the La Bouffe. He's the comedic character.
Mm-hmm.
He's the comedic relief of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he's quirky and he's fun, and he always kind of plays the character that's like, oh, of course I can be a librarian. What do I do? You know? And so he kind of has that false like assurance, and then he finds himself like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So he's funny to kids and he's funny to adults. So I think that's great. But then also, you know, what kind of value do you show? I guess just a different personality.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know. I would put him right where he's at, to be honest.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that.
He's original, and he definitely has a history in the show. But at the same time, I think of like, what has he helped people gain? You know?
Sure. I mean, if you haven't read the monster at the end of this book, it's a banger. I feel like I wouldn't even necessarily be opposed to keeping him in C tier, but I think I would put him ahead of Gabrielle, although then again, I guess you know more about Gabrielle than I do, but I just like, I don't know. I mean, he's Grover, you know? Everyone loves Grover, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could go ahead of Gonger then, too.
Okay.
He's got more character depth than Gonger.
Okay, I think I'm okay with that.
Okay. Next.
Guy Smiley. So I actually don't really know
You know Guy
anything.
Smiley?
I know his name. I don't know anything else about him.
Oh, he's just the announcer. Anytime they do weird stuff, they're like, "Oh, we're on a game show." Blah blah blah. You know, he's Guy Smiley.
Okay. So keep him where he's at.
Or... I would put him on D ahead of Belle. What's her face? Prairie Dawn.
Prairie Dawn. Yeah.
Southern Belle.
Yeah.
Right. Because he is kind of he's an outgoing character, and he's memorable too, even though he's in like very few episodes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Who's this?
Oh man, that is Ji Young.
Ji Young.
Yes, she is the Asian representation on Sesame Street.
Oh.
Which is so funny, because this year it is all about like not just Black Lives Matter, but everybody matters, right?
Sure.
We watched the new season and we go, who the heck is Ji Young? Like, did they just... Because her appearance in season 53, they go, oh, hey, Ji Young. And we're like, what?
Oh, that's
we
so
know Ji
weird.
Young? What?
Yeah, you have to introduce the character.
And so we looked it up, and her premiere was on a special. Like a special episode that was apart from the main series. And we were like, oh, come on. You know? So we were kind of upset of the fact that, like, we know why you brought her in. You know? And it's important and it's nice, but the same thing. They're not giving depth. They're just bringing her in when they're adding the different multicultural representation. And I don't know. It's that same love-hate relationship with Bert and Ernie. It's like you're adding more Muppets with different color of skin just to help show that fact, but you're already showing that with the live actors that you have, too.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do think, like, that it's, like, good to have, because, like, you know, the Muppet characters are the ones that, like, people like remember the most, right?
True.
That's why there are very few like actual human characters on this list.
But I'm not ranking on how important are they as a character, or how much do we like that they exist. It's more of like how Sesame Street has used them and how they are as a character represented on the show. And right now I feel like she has not had much much screen time to say much about her.
Yeah,
to my perspective.
And I will also say that just like looking at her, this is the most generic looking Sesame Street character I've ever seen. Like she looks like if someone had to make like a legally distinct Sesame Street knockoff for like Mad TV or something, like she would be on that. Because she just like Gabrielle, she's like, I don't know, like her proportions and just like the like red nose and stuff, like
it's more of a
feel
Muppet.
like I feel like she is a little more like Muppetized, and then Gabrielle, like, honestly, you know what it is she looks like an Avenue Q character. That's no, she looks like she is in an adult, and I don't mean adult as in, X-rated, but, like an adult parody of Sesame Street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I would put her where she's at, or top on D tier, but that's kind of what I meant. They have to do more with her if I'm going to rank her higher.
Yeah, I would feel a little bad being like, oh, the like character that they added as Asian representation is a D tier character, but at the same time, it's like,
until they give her more screen time or character depth, it's hard to give her that notoriety, and until they give that to her, you know what I mean?
No, I agree. Okay. You know what? Just for the sake of making the tiers a little more even, let's do that. Okay. Julia. She is a character. She is a character that I actually have seen a couple of the Julia episodes. I am autistic. I've talked about it on this channel a few times. And I have very complicated feelings about Julia.
I would be interested to hear your take, because I know where I would probably place her, but
so I think, when I first saw Julia's debut episode, I thought she was great. I thought that the way that Sesame Street showed her actions, and then the like adult characters in the show would say, Julia has autism and is doing this because she has autism, but they also made it very clear that like autism doesn't look like this for everyone, and that this is just, these are just some of the things that could come with it. They did a very good job of saying, like, well, for Julia, autism means this. Right. I think making that distinction was very important. And, I have noticed she's become, like, more of a member of the main cast, and I think that's really good. My problem with Julia is she is currently being used as a mascot for Autism Speaks. Now, how much do you know about Autism Speaks, Jason?
I do know that she is a mascot for it, and that is the extent.
So, let me tell you a little something about Autism Speaks. They are kind of a hate group. They really, like, they don't serve to benefit autistic kids so much. They exist for the parents and for, like, the parents to feel better. But they, like, really, like, they have this mission of, like, they want to, like, eliminate autism, and they, like, talk about stuff like, almost all of the, like, testimonials that they have from parents and stuff are, like, oh, it's so hard raising an autistic child, like, every day is miserable, like that sort of thing. And they don't really highlight how, like, it's okay to be a kid with autism, and it's like you can thrive with it. I'm very mixed on Julia. Part of me is tempted to leave her in C. Part of me is tempted to move her all the way to F. But again, it's not because of who she is as a character. It's the fact that she's being used as a mascot for Autism Speaks that is, not cool with me, and
that's interesting, because to hear your perspective, because from my perspective of someone, it's like they're using her way more than the black representation or the Asian representation, which has been great, because you see with technology how kids are getting exposed to other people's disabilities or different walks of life, and it's all about the understanding. The more they understand, the more they accept. And kids today, I kid you not, are so much more accepting of kids who are different than even we were growing up. And it's absolutely a great thing to see. Like my daughter has a disability too. She has hearing loss, among other things that, I don't need to disclose. But being scared as a parent of how people will treat her in school, it's almost reassuring to know that, like, kids are just so much more aware of the world because of technology and the internet, that they're just like, oh, it just helps her here. Okay, whatever, and they don't care. So I think having Julia shown more in the episodes has helped, because they describe, oh, well, she doesn't like loud music. And then, one of the characters goes, oh, well, let's just play the game with quieter music. It's like, okay, great, So I think that part has been great. But to see your perspective of the fact that, like, they could almost be misrepresenting her by dumbing her down a bit to not say as much about, like, this is just how she is versus this is the way autism is, or the fact that she's representing companies that may speak differently. It could go both ways, but I definitely think they're showing her a lot more than they are representing the other groups that they probably did.
And I do think there's something to be said for, like, having a main cast member be, or, like, not main, but, like, close to main cast member being autistic. Like, how many other pop culture characters can you name that are autistic, right? Like, there's, in some ways, I find, like, ability-related representation even more important than like race-related representation, just because there is so little of it. But I I really don't know where to place Julia, because, like, it's the points you're making make perfect sense, and I want to give props. Okay. What I'm thinking right now is maybe top of C tier, because it's just like
I can see that.
Yeah, my conflict is I used to consider Julia, like, towards the top of the list, and I her character hasn't changed, at least as far as I know. It's just I know that when they first introduced her to the show, like, Sesame Street did a lot of, like, research, and they did use Autism Speaks as one of the organizations for research, but they also used a bunch of other autism organizations. And so it was, not, they weren't putting Autism Speaks front and center, but now that they are, it's disappointing, to say the least.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Top of C.
Okay. We have the Meep Meep Martians.
Yep. It's yep.
Oh, it is Yip. It is Yip.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
um,
Very 2D character. Not
Yeah.
much going on. They have had some episodes where they actually talk, but they mainly
oh,
serve.
really?
Yeah, there has been where they're Martians and they're exploring Earth, and then Elmo helps teach them about Earth things.
That's fun.
So that's interesting. But mainly it's when you have the number of the day. They are the yip counters. You can count the Martians for the number of the day. So
Oh, fun.
but they do. I will say they have a pop culture reference. Like if you go on things like Etsy, they have pot planters that you can hang from like the ceiling, and they're like little Martian planter holders. So like there's tons of cool things where they have appeared as a result of their creation.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely not complex characters. Like they're gag characters. They exist basically for a single gag.
Yes.
I think it's a good gag, and I think they're good at what they do. Yeah, I almost wish there was a tier in between B and C, just because. Yeah, I don't think a one-note gag character should be like in A or S tier. Mm-hmm. I definitely don't think. And looking at our B tier now, like those are all main characters, right? So
I would put him behind Guy Smiley, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, Guy Smiley is a bit more outstanding. Although I would say, pop culturally, like the Yip Yips have gone a lot further in the world than Guy Smiley has.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just think like I don't know their voice and their design they're so funny looking, like they're great.
They are unique.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, this is hard. This is really hard. Part of me is tempted to leave them where they are. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we can circle back to them is the other thing, but like,
I would say either put them ahead of Ji-young or stick them behind Julia.
You know what? Yeah, I think
because they're another comedic character, but they serve a more unique purpose than what
Okay, yeah, I think I can agree with that.
All right.
Mr. Johnson. I think even more so than Bert, Mr. Johnson is an excellent straight man. I think
he is S all the way.
I mean, I like him a lot. I wasn't gonna, because he is kind of a one-note gag character, but he does what he does really well, I think.
He does what he does really well, but he is the perfect representation as a Muppet for adults.
Yeah. I can see that, for sure.
He is negative and he's complaining. They use him in the later seasons for like, he's like getting soup at Hooper's store. And then just the kids just get in the way or something. Mm-hmm. And it's that, but he serves the generic like adult that just doesn't understand or doesn't want to play along. It's not so much, for the Muppets, it's not like the guys at the side of the theater like heckling, but I think he's a deeper character than that, and he's stayed relevant too across that.
Although don't disrespect Statler and Waldorf. I love Statler and Waldorf too.
Oh no, they're great. I'm just saying,
like
he's served himself in more scenes and served to play a deeper and more solid role than I think Grover has been able to. And I would place him at S because I don't feel many other Muppets could fill the shoes of Mr. Johnson.
Okay. I don't know if I want to put him all the way in S, but I originally had him in B. So can we compromise and put him somewhere in A?
Yeah, throw him behind Big Bird. That'd be fine.
Okay, yeah. I think
Big Bird's also another unique, iconic character that people can't really replace. You know, another character can't fill his role in the scenes that he plays. So,
okay. Murray. I know almost nothing about Murray.
Oh my gosh, I only know the fact that like they were including more Hispanic and Spanish education. Sure. And so for a number of seasons, they had the word on the street. What's the word on the street? And you learn a new word about what it means. And Murray was the host of that.
Yeah.
And so you would do scenes, and he'd be kind of the MC in between. This was before like Elmo kind of took over everything else.
Sure.
And so I don't know. He was great at what he did. He was a good MC, but man, he was just so annoying. And he tried to be like, I mean, that's basically it. He's an MC, and I don't feel like he was that entertaining. And you didn't see him in other scenes with the other Muppets, so you didn't really feel. At least I didn't feel like he was a part of Sesame Street. He was the one going out into the world, interviewing with people. So I felt like he was just kind of this outsider Muppet that never really got integrated with the rest of the cast.
Yeah. And what I was saying about Gonger earlier was like, I don't think every Muppet needs to be like, I feel like some Muppets can just have their niche, but it's a little different when you have
he's off Sesame Street. He's the one interviewing outside. And so he
right. Yeah, it's way different when they're like the host of the segment. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, that is a really weird decision. I don't know why they wouldn't try to integrate him more into the cast if they're going to give him his own segment.
Right. So, and maybe he did, but I never saw it. So,
sure,
I would put him in F just because great idea, failed implementation. Okay.
Above or below Betty Lou?
Below.
Wow, okay.
Betty Lou's established, like she has a purpose, and so did Murray. I just feel like they didn't implement him well. So.
Murray kind of looks like if Elmo was a Pokemon, Murray could be an evolution for him.
That's funny.
Anyway. Oscar the Grouch.
Oh, Oscar. He'd have to be at least A for me because he's the only grouchy character.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I guess now they have extended Grouch family, but
sure.
They needed somebody to teach kids that everything's not just all nice. And not everybody's nice, and you can't just approach everybody because some people are mean. And I think that's really important, especially for early Sesame Street, teaching kids and trying to reach kids from like urban cities and neighborhoods. That's a real thing. So I think he serves a very important character in that not everybody's nice.
Well, and I also think that there's like a lot of depth to Oscar as a character. Like there's the the surface level, like, yeah, he's a grouch, he's mean, he lives in a trash can, that sort of thing. But like I like that he genuinely like likes being gross. Or he genuinely likes things that are unpleasant. It's kind of like the Mark Chang from Fairly Odd Parents sort of thing, where everything that's like pleasant on our planet is terrible for them, and vice versa. I remember one standout moment watching Oscar as a kid was there was like an orchestra playing in front of him, and they were like tuning up, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm really into this," and then they actually started playing. Like real music, and he was like, "What is this? Why are you playing it?" And
That's
And then,
awesome.
like, after they were done, he was like, could you play Tuning Up? And I'm thinking it was like a real, like, professional orchestra, you know, like a big name orchestra. And, like, the head of the orchestra, like, the conductor was like, well, we have a request. And then they just like tuned up for a while. I thought that was really funny. And I also think his relationship with Slimy, his little pet worm. Yeah, it's very endearing. It kind of humanizes him.
As a kid, like, if he didn't frown, I wouldn't understand him.
Sure.
As a kid who has no idea of what sarcasm is, like, everything is literal. They played him very well, I think. So,
yeah.
A for me. I would say ahead of Big Bird.
I put Oscar in S tier. Oscar was one of my top 3 characters.
Oh. I'm flexible for that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not like super precious about where in S tier he goes. You know, I think both Oscar and the Count, and from what you've described of Abby, I think they're all great characters. So I can put him here, unless you have reason for me to move him.
I'd say him and the Count are pretty equal, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay. I know that this lamb is associated with Murray, and I'm wondering if I'm wondering if I should place him right next to Murray, or if you like the lamb more.
This is Ovejita, which means little sheep in Spanish. Fun fact, in Latin America, it is slang for hooker.
Oh, they probably could have thought that through a little better. Especially if Murray is supposed to be like the character that teaches people.
Well, I mean,
Spanish.
little lamb, little sheep, like, I don't know. It's
I guess.
Slang could be anything, right?
I guess that's true. I just like,
I would put Ovejita below Murray.
I'm thinking about it in terms of like, if they introduced a cat character and were like, here's Mr. Pussy, I would be like, I don't know about that one. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and she's pretty much like the Grover of the whole MC segment. She's just the comedic relief kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I got to say about that.
Rosita.
Great. Love her as a character. Love how they use her. They could have got a different voice actress. That's man, just like I believe she's Spanish American.
Yeah.
And she has the accent down. She just sounds like she's yelling on everything.
Oh, sure.
And that is too, I don't know. I want to say it's just stereotypical, but it's not stereotypical. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
Because I can't say stereotypical because I don't know any Hispanic friends that sound like they're yelling over every word, even if they have the Spanish American accent. So I love her as a character. I love how they use her, and I love how they introduce Hispanic culture and Spanish language better than Murray and Ovejita have ever been able to do. So I would rank her high. I just wish they had a better voice actress for her as well.
Yeah, and I know she's been on the show for a long time. She kind of pioneered. I remember seeing her as a kid.
Really?
So she's been around. Yeah, no, she's been around for a while.
91.
So she kind of.
Wow.
Yeah. No, she kind of pioneered the whole like. Maybe, let's have more representation.
Okay, so
thing.
Maybe that makes more sense in 91. Maybe the voice was more of a rudimentary understanding than what we have today. And maybe it just hasn't held up. That does make sense. And she plays guitar, so she's musical.
Yeah.
I would put her ahead of Mr. Johnson. Because
really?
This is
that high.
She is a unique character, and unlike the Black and Asian cast Muppets, like I feel like they have given her the screen time and have given her the representation to organically teach us things, but also have her be a regular character that doesn't need that brought up every single scene.
Yeah. Okay. I like Rosita. I think she's definitely not D or F tier for me. But yeah, I always just thought of her as like, oh, I like her, she's fun. And not as like, wow, what a great character. But I guess in terms of being sort of this pioneer in a sense, and also like being able to, you know, both do the representation and actually being like a fun character in her own right, I can definitely see why you'd want to place her like higher than
Bert and Ernie.
Oh, that hurts.
They do not have the relevance that they used to.
Yeah, I know.
They do not speak to a group the way that Rosita does nowadays.
Well, I feel like it would be so easy to give Bert and Ernie that extra relevance because, you know, I mean, it's been something for years that people have noticed of like, oh, these two like grown man-esque style characters like share a room together, you know, and they've never said that they're related in any way. So like I feel like they could very easily bring Bert and Ernie back into relevance by being like, hey, they're canonically gay, but I also know like
they can't do that because they're kids.
Well, yeah,
and that breaks into a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I know it would be controversial. Is the thing. And also your whole point about like how in some ways they're childlike, in some ways they're adult-like. I think honestly a really good comparison to like Bert and Ernie would be like SpongeBob and Patrick, kind of, because they're both these characters that like they do certain things that it's like, you know, they have like jobs or whatever, and they like, you know, they're like trying to learn like how to drive and stuff, but at the same time it's like they act like children a lot of the time. I don't know if I can put Rosita above Bert and Ernie.
All right, put her above Cookie then.
Okay, I think I'm willing to do that.
All right, let's move on.
Who is this?
You don't know who that is?
I have no idea who that is.
Oh, this is Rudy.
Rudy. Okay, what's Rudy's deal?
Rudy, and I'm gonna look this up when he was actually premiered because, okay, he was premiered in season 47, which was about 6 years ago. So he is the stepbrother to Abby. So this helps introduce different family types. So her mother is single. I don't know what the deal is with her dad. I don't know if we've ever met her birth dad, but she remarried to Rudy's dad, who looks just like a bigger version of Rudy, and she's so excited to meet him, and they had a whole episode of that. So he's kind of like, he's a nice kid, but he can also be the unintentional bully, where he just kind of, it's like ready, fire, aim with him, his personality. And then by the time he's already fired, he's like, oh, I upset somebody's feelings. Oh, I'm sorry, you know. So we love him, we hate him, but he serves an interesting character because there are a lot of people with that kind of personality, and we need to learn how to play and react with those people and talk to them. So,
well, and especially, you know, children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like he's a pretty good character. He serves multiple purposes within the show. It sounds like. But yeah,
Yes.
where would you place
Oh,
him?
and man, his voice is so annoying, but it is the perfect it is the perfect voice for his personality, so I can't complain.
Sure. Okay.
Um. Oh man. I would say behind Rosita.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he plays more of a character depth than Cookie Monster, but he is also kind of 2D in a sense that, yeah, just based on his personality, they just kind of use him for those roles. So,
Okay.
all right, Snuffy.
Yeah. Mr. Snuffleupagus.
I feel like you're gonna rank him really high. I just have a feeling.
Yeah, this is the final of the initial characters I put in S tier.
Oh man.
I
What
I
is,
love
explain to me, because he's old school. They don't use him much at all anymore.
Okay.
And I
Yes.
do know, like, fun fact, he was imaginary to Big Bird. Like, he was Big
Well,
Bird's imaginary friend, right?
no. So the gag with Snuffleupagus was that Big Bird was actually friends with Snuffy. Snuffy did exist within the Sesame Street world, but it was like every time that Big Bird wanted to introduce Snuffy to someone, then he would like have to go away for a little bit, or like he's like, oh, I gotta go run and grab something, or yeah. And like most of the time, like Snuffy would come back and be like, okay, I'm ready to meet your friends, and Big Bird would be like, oh, well, they just left. And so it was this sort of thing where it's like, despite being like this very physically large, like magical, like unique looking character, no one actually believed he existed, except for Big Bird. And I don't know. I do know that at a certain point, kids were writing in upset that the adults and the other characters on Sesame Street didn't get to meet Snuffleupagus, so they had a whole episode dedicated to Big Bird being like, you see, he really is real.
Yeah. And my understanding of that is they didn't want to draw the impression that Big Bird was crazy. And so they just kind of nipped that in the bud and said, like, okay, everybody can see him.
No, it was because kids were upset
Okay.
that episode happened. And
Interesting. Okay. But what's his character like? Because from what I understand, he's super two-dimensional. He doesn't like... He's kind of the sad sack, right?
Yeah, kind of. And I guess, okay, you do kind of have me on like, what is he as a character? I really like the name, the design, the concept, and the voice. And I don't know. It's like what Pokemon are your favorites, right? Because like most Pokemon don't have like super defined personalities. It's just kind of like, this one's cute, this one's funny, this one's cool, this one's good competitively, whatever. And to me, Snuffleupagus has that kind of appeal where it's like, like he's like
He's the only big Muppet besides Big Bird, but he's even bigger than that. So
yeah, well, and he's like this silly, like not quite elephant character, and like there's a lore that like, his species is Snuffleupagus. So, there are like other Snuffleupagi out and about, but he's like the Snuffleupagus. Yeah, I don't know. He has this like kind of like mascot appeal for me, where it's like, yeah, I can't really tell you what, like, I can't say he's super deep, but I just like him, you know?
All right. All right, but he's got to be on the bottom of S.
You're okay with putting him in S? Because I am willing to compromise a little bit on Snuffy.
They don't use him much anymore. The latest episode I saw, he was trying to be like a waiter, and he couldn't remember the order. And
he couldn't remember the order. See, for me, if I were writing that episode, I'd just make it like a bunch of gags about like how big he is and how he has to like use his trunk and how he keeps like knocking into things. Like, I think that's the more obvious place to take that joke. Yeah, because like, if you're like, I don't really like Snuffy that much, I'm willing to like put him in A tier. I'm even willing to put him in the bottom of A tier if you think that's necessary.
Oh yeah, throw him in the bottom of A.
I can't put him lower than that. I really like Snuffy. Okay. This guy looks like a like, you know how some YouTubers will use like cartoon caricatures of themselves when they're like talking about like political issues or what, like that's the vibe I get from this guy. This guy has like a 40-minute video on how like Hershey's candy bars have gone woke, and why that's a problem.
They just kind of have a woke dress code.
Or an anti-woke dress code is what I'm saying. Is like he looks like well, also it's the pose, it's like the smugness of him. Like, I feel like he's gonna say like some alt-right talking points to me. But who is he? What is his deal?
He is Tamir. And he is Gabrielle's cousin. So they premiered in, I want to say they premiered in the same episode. But yeah, I mean, like, similar representation. I feel like, yeah, like his dress style is kind of early 2000s, right? And he premiered in 2020, which is kind of funny. So kind of interesting there. I would put him right where he is, but that's just me, because same argument, they really haven't used him that much, and they probably could, and it's just interesting having human Muppets. Like, it's one thing to represent autism, because you can't really do that well with live acting, but
I mean, you could, but yeah, it can read as a little like
it would read totally different than what you would want to do, right? And but we already have a diverse cast of live actors, and so to bring the Muppets in, like, while you say it is more memorable, but you could tell that they're bringing them in to serve a purpose, and that is mainly when they appear is to serve the purpose of like everybody's together, we're cultural, we're culturally accepting, and the scenes that kind of accent that, and I feel like they could do so much more. I
totally agragree that, like, if you're
Sesame Street is primarily a monster show, and that's kind of like, I don't know.
I think if you're going to make a character a Muppet, you do have to give them a more defined personality, I think. And
he's happy and he's positive, and it's like, why don't you do something like Rudy, where he's kind of a bully and unintentionally, give him something else than the fact that he's black,
Sure. I mean, I could even see it as like, maybe even like a toxic positivity thing, where he like acts positive in situations where it's like, no, this is actually serious. You need to like treat this seriously. Like that's a good lesson for kids. Okay, this dog is very cute, but I know nothing about them.
That is Tango. So I know nothing about Barkley. But Tango
Okay, that's
is premiered in a special where he was a dog, but he didn't have a home. So Elmo and Grover helped to find him a home, but no one adopts him at the dog fair, and then Elmo eventually adopts him, and they become like best friends. So Elmo and Tango, they do new side specials where they like discover mysteries. So he's a totally cute dog, super relevant, awesome. I'm a dog person over a cat person any day. So
same.
I think he's great. Yeah. I wouldn't know where to rank him though, because he's a dog.
Sure. Yeah, and yeah, he's not like a talking dog or anything. He just acts like a dog, right?
Well, in the Nutcracker special, Elmo dreams and then Tango can talk and he loses his toy.
Sure.
So he does talk, but
sure.
Yeah.
But normally he doesn't, right?
Yeah. Normally he doesn't.
Yeah.
He does have personality, but it's a dog. I would put him under G Young for the fact that like it's a dog. A dog does not serve more of a purpose than the others have. He definitely serves more than Guy Smiley, but
yeah, he's so cute. I don't want to rank him low, but I mean that's fair. I can do that because you're right. Okay, Telly.
Oh my gosh, Telly. Do you know Telly well? I don't know him super well other than like the episodes I've seen, but I legitimately thought he had like Tourette's or something when I first saw him, because the first episode I saw him in was when they were doing like art projects, and he would be like, well, I can't do this. I don't have this art project. And then Abby goes, well, I'm just going to glue this to the paper. And he goes, you can't do that. And she's like, well, why not? I can do anything. It's art. I can do anything I want. And then he kind of learns about it. He's kind of sharp around the edges. And so I honestly thought there was something, that they were representing through him. And he's not. It's just a personality. So...
Yeah, my primary associations with Telly are, first of all, like he loves carrying around a cardboard triangle, and he loves his triangle, and I understand having a character that like is supposed to teach kids about shapes or whatever. But, like, at the same time, I feel like there's a more organic way to do it. And also, like, I don't know. If you saw a kid carrying around a cardboard triangle and that was the thing that they were obsessed with, you'd be like, what is this kid's deal, And the other thing is, like, I just remember... There was, like, an episode where he got into, like, a big argument with, like, Elmo or something. Like, one of the characters that, like, everyone really likes. And I remember being like, man, screw Telly. Like, he just, like, I don't know. I want to put him in F tier just because I don't, like... I think there's a difference between, like, Telly and Oscar. Because, like, Oscar, is unpleasant to, like, or would be unpleasant to be around in real life, I think, but also, like, they're, like, fun to watch,
Telly, I would put Telly at the bottom of D because he is abrasive without, they don't explain why he is that way, or they don't give him a... He has a character with depth, right? He understands things and he corrects his behavior and then he's nice. But at the same time, as a kid, I don't think it translates very well. I don't think his personality translates the way that they intended.
Yeah, and I think also, like, if he is, like... being a jerk, and then he learns his lesson, and then he's being a jerk again the next episode, then you don't get the impression that he's like really changed. And I get that he's supposed to like represent a little kid, but I think it's like this.
It's a failed implementation versus like Rudy, who like he doesn't mean to be a bully. He's he just acts before he thinks, and that you can understand. With Telly, I feel like he just doesn't think. And he only understands things when people tell him, but you don't really see him grow from that. It's only in the moment that he's like, oh, I shouldn't do this,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think bottom of D is good for me.
Okay.
Two-headed monster.
Oh, man.
I mean,
I see no purpose for them, but they're old school Sesame Street. They were back with the hokey, different, short scenes and
sure. Yeah.
They don't even talk, so I can't understand much of like what they're supposed to be. They kind of talk in a gibberish style.
Yeah, most of the time. I mean, I remember in like Journey to Ernie when Big Bird was asking for directions, they would always go that way and point in like opposite directions. And that gag was funny the first time, and then they did it every Journey to Ernie episode. Yeah, they are like a one-note gag character, and the gag isn't like that great. So, I don't mind having them somewhere like in the bottom half of the list. I don't know where specifically, but yeah, no, I'm okay with putting them in C, D, or F.
I would throw them at the very bottom. Just because
very bottom.
I can't say I've learned anything from them other than when they introduce a letter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that
but they have been around a long time.
They have been around a long time, and I think like their design is memorable, right?
Yeah. Of course, it's totally unique. It's a better design than Marie and Ovejita.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on that front, I feel like I wouldn't put them at the very, very bottom, but I would put them like here or here.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Slimy.
Wormy.
I feel like his name is Slimy.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah. Let's figure this out.
Oh, it is Slimy. Okay. My bad.
Yeah, Wormy's the SpongeBob caterpillar.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
Slimy. Slimy the Muppet. Oh man, he's interesting. He adds a whole nother depth to like the microverse of Sesame Street.
Yeah, I think it's fun to have like a really like in the same way that like Big Bird and Snuffleupagus are fun because of their sheer size. How big they are. I think Slimy is fun because of how small he is. There is this just like tiny little Muppet that can like fit in like Oscar's hand. He's that small. And they do a good job of like puppeting him and like making him like really expressive. Like despite that, it's kind of a magical effect, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
He is just a worm. He's a very cute worm, but he is just a worm. And I think he does serve an important role in that, like I said earlier, he does humanize Oscar. But like, I don't think I can put him above any of the main cast. I definitely like
he can't stand on his own. He needs other people to advocate for him. Otherwise you have no idea what's going on. So he's an expressive character and dynamic, but like I think Tango stands more on his own. You don't need somebody to advocate for Tango. So that's the difference, but I do get what you say where like his puppetry is amazing and it's incredibly dynamic. And they do multiple gags with him. He's an incredible character too.
Yeah. And I think like, Elmo getting a dog, that's fun. That adds, like, a new dynamic or whatever. But at the same time, like, you don't really need to show that Elmo is, like, a compassionate person and, like, takes care of other things and, like, can be, like, a good friend to animals. Because we already kind of knew that about Elmo, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Oscar, it's, like, I feel like without Slimy... Oscar is a worse character.
I wouldn't say so, because he existed for quite a while without Slimy.
I mean, that's
but
true.
They helped him grow, for sure.
But to me, like, what I'm saying is, like, Oscar is more compelling for the fact that Slimy exists. And you could maybe say that to some extent about Tango, but I feel like, yeah, Elmo needed that type of, like, relationship a lot less than Oscar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where would you rank him?
So, I would do top of C or bottom of B. I definitely don't, like I said, I don't think he belongs, like, above any of the main cast, and it looks like pretty much everyone in B tier is, like, main cast,
Why don't we compromise then and put him above the aliens and behind Julia?
I can work with that, yeah.
Okay,
Zoe.
She doesn't serve much of a purpose from what I see. Like, she has her interests, she loves pink, she loves dancing,
Mm-hmm.
but she's almost like the other human Muppets, where it's like she just seems like another character. She doesn't have any depth besides those facts from what I've seen.
So
I feel like you know Zoe a lot better than I do, though.
Yeah, Zoe, to me, I think she is an excellent foil for Elmo. Because Elmo is, like, usually, like, super positive, like, fun-loving, friendly, that sort of thing. And, like, Elmo sees Zoe as a friend. He likes the idea of, like, hanging out with her or whatever, and they can have fun together, but it's, like, a lot of the times when they're playing together, Zoe will,
hurt his feelings or something.
Not even hurt his feelings. She, like... How do I put this? She will do something that just, like, drives Elmo crazy. Just like really irks him, really annoys him. Like, are you familiar with the Rocco scenes? Okay. You need to look these up. Like, honestly, part of the reason why I was even willing to put Elmo in A tier was because of the Rocco scenes. So Zoe has this pet rock named Rocco.
Oh, I think I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah. And, Rocco is, literally just a rock. Does not talk, does not move. And, yeah, Zoe, like, will, like, carry him everywhere. And, like, when they're, like, going out, like, they go to the, like, cafe or whatever, where, like, Gabby's, like, serving food or whatever. She's at the counter and she's like, okay, I've got 2 cookies left. It's your lucky day. Zoe and Elmo, and Zoe will be like, well, Rocco says that he really wants a cookie. And then the adults just, like, give into it. He was like, oh, Rocco wants, okay, so yeah, no, Rocco can have a cookie, and then Elmo just doesn't get a cookie. He does this, like, hilarious, like, scowl, and, like, he ends up acting, like, really passive-aggressive. Like, there are scenes where Elmo's like, well, if it's okay with Rocco, then I guess I'm okay. And it's just, like, it reminds me of the episode of SpongeBob where Squidward gets fired and is hanging out at SpongeBob's house, and, like, SpongeBob's taking care of him, where it's like, I love characters that can push like the friendly character to their absolute limits, and you can see them like, kind of break for a bit and be like, no, it's serious when like the happy guy gets mad, So, and there are other examples of like Zoe doing that sort of thing too. So it's like, I don't know if she's teaching kids the best lessons, but it is very, very funny. So I...
Kind of similar to Rudy then.
Yeah, kind of.
With a little more depth. Okay.
I probably wouldn't put her above B tier, but I think she's pretty comfortably in B tier, for me anyway.
Sure, yeah, I could see that.
I don't know where to place her in B tier. Maybe I'll just put her next to Rudy since they are kind of similar, but...
Ahead of Rudy,
I don't
then.
know. Yeah. Okay, to be honest with you, Barkley here, I just was like... I remember Big Bird had a dog, and it was like kind of a cute dog, but it's less cute than the other dog on the list. So, it's less. Yeah, he's less cute than Tango, and I don't think he had any real personality. So, I don't necessarily want to put him in F tier because dog, but also he is just dog. So.
Yeah, just Big Bird's dog. I think it was originally called Woof Woof too.
I do like that. That does endear him to me a little bit. But
I know nothing about him. I would kind of just place him below Tango for sure. But
okay, I think that makes sense. Although the tier list is being silly. Okay, and then on the topic of just animals. We got Dorothy the goldfish.
Dorothy's awesome. She's just a fish.
yeah, just Elmo having this just real fish with no like. I do think it's very cute how much Elmo loves Dorothy, despite the fact that fish are some of the like least emotive animals there are.
To me, this is the equivalent of they used to have some episodes where they would introduce the episode with a real baby, and you would have Grover like just talking like, "Oh, hello, baby. Or can you talk?" or so, and they would just like. The baby would just be doing whatever the baby does. And that, to me, is like Dorothy's role is just like, you're just a fish. And you are whatever Elmo imagines you to be. And that is your role.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with that in mind, and actually, that kind of cycles back to Tango, too, where I was saying, like, it's not super necessary to give Elmo a pet. Even though, like, the story that you described, it sounds very cute. Like, it sounds like a very wholesome episode.
Tango's great. Tango's like cute. But at this point, she's, Tango's a dog.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it when we were having the Tango discussion, but part of why I feel that way is, like, yeah, Elmo already has Dorothy. Like, we not only, like, just from vibes know that Elmo can take care of an animal. It's like, no, we've actually seen it before. Yeah. So, I don't really know where to place her, to be honest.
I don't know. Dorothy has no lines, but she is as deep as Elmo wants Dorothy to be.
That itself is deep. Oh yeah, no. I never thought that like Dorothy would be the character where I'm like, I'm like freaking out about where to put her.
Dorothy is real too. It's not a Muppet.
Yeah.
So it's not a character. It is the representation of someone who is 3 years old could actually have as a pet.
How many Dorothys do you think they went through on Elmo's World? How many goldfish did they have to buy
Only
for
one,
Elmo's
Ben.
World?
Stop talking. There's only been one Dorothy.
Okay. Yeah, goldfish are famously known for their long lifespans.
I would put Dorothy... Man, Dorothy is either an A tier or like a D tier.
Yeah, no, that's the thing.
There is no in between.
It's very... Okay, here's what I'll do. I will put Dorothy at the very top of D tier, and it can be D for Dorothy tier.
Okay.
Okay, Hoots the Owl.
Hoots the Owl, man.
My favorite Sonic the Hedgehog character, Hoots the Owl.
Was the thick eyebrows?
Well, I'm just more so talking about like the naming convention of blank the blank, you know? But I don't know. I mean, I like him.
Yeah. Good character. Similar thing, kind of gimmicky, but
sure. Yeah, he
plays the saxophone, you know.
Yeah.
Talks.
I mean, yeah, that's his whole thing is that he plays the saxophone, but he's got like a memorable character design. Like, I would probably not... I think he's pretty comfortably in C tier. I don't know where to put him in C tier. Maybe like somewhere behind Grover. Like,
I was gonna put him behind Tango.
That works for me.
Okay.
Oh, behind Tango.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because
Yeah, you know
Tango
what?
has so much more of a presence now than, you know.
You know what?
Hoots has to be next to the other gimmicky, you know, character. He can't exist outside of what he does. He doesn't have any more use outside of that.
Yeah.
Kind of like Snuffy.
All right.
No, Snuffy has more in depth than that.
Yeah,
but.
no. I think the concept of Snuffy is good. It's like, I think Hoots the Owl, I wanted to include him on this list just because he is like a memorable like character design.
And he talks
and,
too,
like,
yeah.
And a memorable gimmick. But it's also like, yeah, he's not a deep character. Okay. Kermit the Frog.
I mean, is he Sesame Street? Is he not?
So he
introduced Sesame Street. I don't know if
right,
you know
and
this.
that's
like the original, one of the original commercials where they're like, "Here's what we're gonna call it." Like he was there.
Yeah.
And then like many employees, he left for a better job. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was also on the Muppets at that time.
Yeah.
I think he was very important to the history of Sesame Street, in that,
he was the old school Elmo.
Kinda, yeah. And he, like, the whole thing is, like, we were like, all right, the Jim Henson Company is doing this new show, but how do we get people on board with it? And they decided to, you know, use the mascot of the Muppets to be, you know, to kind of like wean people into Sesame Street. And then once people like, you know, knew of Sesame Street's reputation, then they could kind of be like, okay, Kermit can, you know, he can go back to being just like a Muppets character, you know. There are some, you know, moments from, like, because I think Kermit was only in, like, the first, like, couple of seasons of Sesame Street. At least as, like, a main cast member, you know. But I will say that, like, the appearances that he had on Sesame Street are some of the most iconic moments in Sesame Street history. The "It's Not Easy Being Green" song is from Sesame Street, and the Cookie Monster and Kermit debate of "It's Not a Cookie," absolutely hilarious, like one of the best Sesame Street segments. That being said, I think Kermit, judging Kermit as an overall character, like in his entirety, I would place him very high on the list. However, as a Sesame Street character specifically, I think he's like a C tier. Because yeah, he was very important early on, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. But also, he's not really a Sesame Street character anymore.
Mm-hmm. True. You want to do top of C?
Yeah, I think top of C is fitting for Kermit. All right, Julia. Okay.
I love how the whole Noodle family has just been left for last. Even though this is not the whole Noodle family, we kind of compromise. This is like the main cast, if you will, of the Noodles.
Yeah, I did. So
we can do all these together too, if you want. But
well, I'm gonna break the fourth wall for a little bit here. Acknowledge that I did look up Schnoodle or Schmoodle prior to this video, because when you mentioned Schmoodle, I was like, okay, I have to know who Schmoodle is. I simply must know who Schmoodle is. But then I found out that Schmoodle has a sister, and she's got like an equally silly name. Hold on.
It's like Noodle or Poodle, Doodle, Croodle. Oh, Floodle. I got there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just...
There's actually, Ben, there's a family episode about siblings, and he's got like 7 siblings, and they all rhyme, and then the last one's Frank.
And the last one's what?
Frank.
Nice. I do like that.
Yeah. But I could not get that list, so I don't know what all the names are. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean we don't need to put all of this.
No. Just for the sake of.
But yeah, we almost went without them, but I was like, we have to have at least Mr. Noodle and then Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle.
Yes. And it's fair to say that it is Mr. Noodle's poodle Schmoodle.
Yes. That being said, I don't know much about... I assume this is Mrs. Noodle, yes?
Miss Noodle.
Miss Noodle.
It's Mr. Noodle's sister.
Okay, that's what I assumed. And then, this is the new Mr. Noodle?
That is Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle.
But wait, this is Mr. Noodle's brother,
That's
Mr. Noodle.
That's Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle.
Okay.
So yeah, basically those are the new casts. Those are the 2 newest Noodles, and then Mr. Noodle, the original, is still on, I believe, but much less so. So Elmo's World like had a crayon
gonna put them
set.
all in C tier now, just for the time being.
So Mr. Noodle was like part of Elmo's World crayon set, like for a long time. I don't know if he was there before that whole set was there, but it kind of dated itself after a while. And when they redid it, they did Elmo's World with a whole new set design, and then they changed, adding these 2 new characters too. So they're a bit younger and a little more relatable. The set itself has a lot better lighting, which I like. It's a little less creepy than the like peering through a window and seeing some 45-year-old man in poor lighting like doing some weird stuff. So
sure.
I obviously, you can tell my thoughts on the original Mr. Noodle, but I told this to Ben off camera, but I was like, as soon as I saw Mr. Noodle in Elmo's World, I'm like, I'm not letting my daughter watch this. This is crossing a line here that I'm not sure I'm ready to explain yet. So no, but yeah, they've definitely modernized it. I have nothing against the clown aspect. It's just the way it just didn't feel like he fit in with the rest of the Sesame Street universe.
I love Mr. Noodle. I am a little more endeared to this Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle, now that you've told me that he is also Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle. Just you know.
Yeah, they didn't replace him. Like, he's not the Mr. Noodle. He's Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle.
Yeah, but, like, looking at him, I was just like, yeah, I thought he was a replacement at first, and I was like, oh, I don't like this guy. You know, because Mr. Noodle, to me, he just, I like that he's this, like, 40-year-old guy that just, like, inexplicably shows up and is, like, Elmo's neighbor or whatever. Like, I just think that's conceptually really funny that there's just, like, as part of this, like, you know, Elmo's World segment where he's, like, talking to babies and talking to his goldfish and, like, being very cutesy, that there's just, like, a random cutaway where he's talking to, like, a middle-aged man, and it's, like, sometimes his brother, and it's just, like, he's, like, this silent character that's, like, tripping over himself. And just the gag that, like, every time it's Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle, that shows up instead of Mr. Noodle. This is a very confusing sentence. Elmo says the full thing every time. He never says, like, oh, it's Mr. Noodle's brother. He's like, oh, Mr. Noodle isn't here. It's Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle. And I just, I don't know. That's really funny.
It's funny. The parent in me screams that a 3-year-old is talking to some middle-aged man away from his parents. Sure, when we already have an Oscar character showing you that not everybody's nice. This is like the stranger danger, section that should be there. Like, I shouldn't be talking to you. But they never do that. It's like, it's okay. Hey, everything's fine, you know? And the parent in me is like, everything's not fine. This is a guy who cannot tie his shoes. You should not be talking to him.
I mean, maybe it would be on that front.
But I will say, like, the different set changes it all, because you're looking at him now, and it's like you can see Mr. Noodle's house, and he's in his yard a safe distance away, and the lighting's very bright, so it is meant to be more of a comedic setting. So it all makes a lot more sense, and it feels a lot more family oriented now that it's like they're a family and not just this weird guy by himself that Elmo's talking to. So
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think that's a smart solution to that problem. I also think, like, you know, there could have been a way to, like, maybe integrate the Noodles into Sesame Street proper, so it's like, you know, they kind of have, like, a reputation in the neighborhood, and, like, maybe the other, like, human adult characters could be like, boy, that Mr. Noodle sure is something, you know?
Like,
where it's
that'd
like,
be interesting,
you know,
too. Yeah.
Yeah, where, like, the other adult characters, like, make it clear that, like, yeah, Mr. Noodle is, like, a weird, silly guy, but he's also, like, not, you know, he's not, like, predatory in any way. Yeah.
All that said, I think Schmoodle is the top player. Unless you want to keep the original Mr. Noodle. But Schmoodle is definitely, like, the cutest and best performer, in my opinion, that they've added.
I did immediately like Schmoodle as soon as I saw him.
Along with the intro just getting even longer. It's Mr. Noodle's dog, Poodle, Schmoodle. Yeah.
And giving him the giant bow tie is very fun. It's hard for me to rank the Noodle Family. Because they weren't on the original tier list that I made, so I didn't place them.
Let's rank just the Noodles. If you want to
Okay.
if you want to rank the original Noodle highest, that's fine because of the history and the fact that the character was made with him. I
Mhm.
can stand
I
behind that.
okay. All right. So yeah, let's. I'm not saying they're permanently in C tier, but I'm gonna like
Yeah, yeah,
rearrange C
yeah, yeah.
tier for now. Okay. So putting Mr. Noodle at the top, Schmoodle in second, and then okay. I I do have some attachment to the original Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle.
I
Um,
know nothing about him, so you rank him how you want.
yeah. I mean, this is how I rank them, but then again, I know very little about Ms. Noodle or Miss Noodle or the
Miss
second.
Noodle's nice. I like the representation of a female
Mhm.
noodle. I just
Yeah.
don't think her
A great
expressions
sentence.
aren't that funny. Like she
Sure.
doesn't make as good of a clown, and
Hmm.
I think it just came down to like a casting choice. Like she does the movements and everything very well. I just think I don't know. It's just it doesn't play the same way. If you saw her
Mm.
and the other Mr. Noodle do the same thing, I think the other Mr. Noodle would get it. Mainly, I don't know. Maybe his hair's more naturally goofy or something, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like they just
Yeah.
like she would be a better cast for something other than a clown. It's kind of where I
I
sit. So
wonder. Yeah, I do think it would be very funny if you had all of these like goofy like Mr. Noodle family members and she was like the one normal one, like she was the straight man to their dynamic, and like she was the only one that talked normally and was like, "Oh my gosh, guys, are you able to just sit still at the dinner table?
I could see
Jeez,
that for her better than what they placed
Yeah,
her at. Yeah.
I think that would be really funny. But it sounds like they didn't do that. So I think that's the order of the noodles. And yeah, what I was going to say earlier was like I like the representation of the female noodle is like a very funny sentence outside of context. Um,
Female noodle.
yeah. Okay.
Where would you put him? I have a idea.
Well, yeah, I feel like we disagree on the noodles. Um, I am tempted. You have to talk me down, Jason.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
I am tempted to put Mr. Noodle in A tier.
I would put him at the top of B. That's what I would do.
You know what? I can respect that. I can respect that. Put him behind Bert. Don't want to separate Bert and Ernie. Okay.
You just
And
have
then
you have Bert the noodles and then Ernie.
that would be kind of funny, but no, I think they do need to be
Yeah,
together.
of course.
And then yeah, Schmoodle right behind. Okay, so you tell me if all of the noodles should be together or if
Yeah,
some of
they've got to
them
be together. They're a unit.
they all should be right next to each other. You think?
Mm-hmm. Although you have me second guessing Bert and Ernie.
Hmm.
Bert, I guess Bert does serve a lot of a purpose for the viewers more so. But it was interesting
Yeah.
because, like, I was thinking about their codependency, and I was like, Ernie has it a lot more together. I think he'd be fine on his own, where Bert kind of needs Ernie, whether he admits it or not.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
but for the viewers, like, that's what the viewers are going to relate to. They love Ernie, but they relate to Bert, I would say.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Well, yeah, I do think it's also like the I keep going back to SpongeBob, but it is kind of like a more loving version of the Squidward SpongeBob dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like Bert is kind of meant to be a little bit more relatable to the adults, and Ernie is meant to be a little bit more relatable to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they love each other, but they also get on each other's nerves. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think Bert and Ernie are very they serve a strong purpose on Sesame Street, and, I mean, if there are any last-minute changes that you want to make, I would not be opposed to moving Bert and Ernie to A tier, but if that's not what you want, then I will leave them as is. And if there are any other last minute changes you think we should make, if there's anyone you think we rated like way too high or way too low, or just like if you want to move people around within a tier.
I mean, Snuffy, I still don't agree with, but
yeah, I can't. Well, let me ask you this then. It pains me to move Snuffy down, but like your logic makes sense. That Snuffy, like they're not super complex or anything.
He's a unique design. He's a unique Muppet.
Yeah.
But his personality and the way he's served in the show, I feel like, aren't super dynamic.
So, here is my offer to you, Jason.
Oh, man.
I am willing to swap Snuffy and Bert and Ernie's places, because I do think that Bert and Ernie are stronger characters than Snuffy. Even though I like Snuffy a lot, based on like the design and the name and the concept behind Snuffy, and the lore, so to speak.
All right, but you have to put Snuffy behind Rosita, and you have to raise Bert and Ernie and keep the noodles in the same order and move them up to A.
Wait, move the noodles up where?
Move the noodles up to A and put Bert and Ernie behind the noodles on A, and then put Snuffy down behind Rosita.
This is an insane request. I mean, I like the noodles a lot. Ah, man. Okay, you know what? Okay. All right. That anyone looking at this list out of context is gonna be like, "What the hell?"
Fix Mr. Noodle.
What do you mean fix him?
Fix Mr. Noodle's brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. I don't want to put him behind Rosita. I mean, I like Rosita, but he's not. She's You know what? Friendship is about compromises.
I think there's a Sesame Street episode on that.
Yeah. So, viewers, so you know, I am doing this because I value Jason as a dear friend, and I would not have been able to do this without him. And so, I'm willing to sacrifice Snuffy for that, but man, just know that in my heart, Snuffy is an S tier character.
It's funny because I don't rank based on like who I personally like, or at least I try not to.
Yeah,
obviously there's bias, but
sure. I think I appreciate, I didn't even necessarily know that going into this, but I think I appreciate that about your rankings, because it does make for more interesting discussions, because
I would not have ranked Tango as a D. I would have put Tango at like A.
Just because he's really cute?
Well, because he's a main character and he gets all the FaceTime and he has this really great special for the Nutcracker special, and
but wait, I feel like you were the one that convinced me to put Tango in D.
He serves like no other. He's a dog and he doesn't talk,
sure.
So he has a personality, sure, but like he's almost dog. Like I can't.
Okay.
I can't rank him high just because he's cute. Like he doesn't.
Sure. I guess for me, Snuffy's a little different because, like, it's less about being, like, cute, obviously, and more about just like being very memorable.
Yeah, and unique
like,
and original.
Yeah, and having, having this whole backstory about him as like people just assume he's Big Bird's imaginary friend. People think he's not real. And like, yeah, that sort of thing. Like it's more of a unique story than Tango has.
Right.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And anything I learn from Tango, I have to learn through Elmo. It's what Elmo learns about how to take care of Tango or things like that. So,
yeah. Snuffy can talk, and that, I mean, that's not to say that if you can't talk, you're not like an interesting character. I mean, we ranked Schnoodle very high, but there is something to be said for a character that can like actually like emote the way that like a human can to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, so this has been going on for a while. I think we're about ready to wrap things up. But is there, anything that you any other last minute changes or anything that you like want to say to my viewers? Anything you want to promote if you have anything to promote?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much off social media these days, so nothing to promote, but it's been great to be part of the show and especially to talk about Sesame Street, having watched it for the last year and a half and getting a new view from, the way I've seen it as a kid. I think it's definitely still a relevant TV show, and they're making a lot of change that's important, so.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, Sesame Street's been running since the 1960s, Mm-hmm. It's got so many. You were saying it was like, what, on season 50 something right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 53, like, I want to say.
And it's not like, because I know that like Survivor has a million seasons too, but that's because they do like two or three seasons a year. It's like to have a show that has remained relevant for so long and has maintained a pretty high standard of quality throughout all that time. It's like The Simpsons can't say that they've maintained their quality for like the past like 30 years. SpongeBob's gone downhill, Family Guy's gone down,
Mm-hmm.
It's, Sesame Street, I think it's very, I like that it's like always kind of evolving and that there are so many characters on this list that I had to ask you about and that like, have been introduced since I was regularly watching. But yeah, I think it does a really good job of like expanding on itself while still remaining true to itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this was super fun. Hey, viewers, let us know in the comments down below if you want to see any more tier list videos with Jason or with other people or because yeah, I would definitely do something like this again.
Absolutely. Yeah, loads of fun. Thanks.
All right, so with that in mind, this is Beano Nintendo signing off.